Final Fantasy XVI continues to be the subject of multiple hot debates across the internet, whether it be that the game strayed too far from its RPG roots, or whether or not it's even a contender for Game of the Year, or was the game fair to its women characters? With all of the hype around Final Fantasy XVI, it's important to try our best to remove recency bias when we're analyzing this work from Creative Business Unit 3 and Square Enix. Final Fantasy has a track record of writing women badly, and I want to take a closer look at Jill, the game's main heroine, dissecting some of the criticism she's received and discerning whether or not she's actually a good character. We're also going to talk about Asmongold's brain-dead take regarding inclusivity in video games. But before we get into it, I'm Solace, this is Solace and Dread. We produce analytical content as well as reaction videos primarily focused on Square Enix, Nintendo, and Capcom publications. Feel free to follow us over on Twitter. I'm still doing it. Feel free to follow us over on X if you want to keep up with everything that we're doing, or you can watch us play some of these games live over on Twitch. Alright, saying it up front, Jill doesn't suffer from bad character writing. But this can be said about many of the game's characters though. The blacksmith, for example, is one of the best written NPCs in this franchise's history. The shopkeep is probably the best written shopkeep in Final Fantasy history. Hell, Clive's fucking dog is the best written dog in Final Fantasy history. This game doesn't suffer from its characters or its writing. But where people tend to lose Jill is in her final arcs in the game, which, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about some of the endgame stuff that happens. She might be miles ahead of a character like Luna Freya in Final Fantasy XV, but she doesn't even begin to stack up to the strength portrayed in Lightning from the 13 trilogy. Part of this is due to the end of the game where she chooses to become more passive and gives some of her strength up to Clive. But to understand who she became, you need to understand who she was. So we're going to go through a brief overview of the history of Jill Warrick. Jill was a princess of the tumultuous Northern Territories in her youth until the Blight encroached on their lands, and they were forced to march south on Rosaria, upon which the Empire's forces were victorious, and they were annexed into Rosarian control. Jill was taken in as a ward, but she was raised alongside Clive and Joshua in almost a sibling-like relationship. That is, until the Night of the Flames, when Rosaria falls. She gets captured by the Iron Kingdom and taken to Drake's Breath to serve as a slave. It's while there that she awakens as the dominant of Shiva. They subject her to brutal torture, even alluding to rape, trying to force her to be a weapon for the Iron Kingdom. When abusing her didn't work, they turned the lash towards the other bearers, oftentimes children, the ones that she had formed relationships with. This, unfortunately, did work in coercing her. She then began to fight for the Iron Kingdom, becoming a monster to survive and protect the other young bearers from being hurt. She became cold and distant, and quite frankly, wishing for death. She was a weapon of mass destruction for years, until the day that Clive and a band of assassins was sent to kill her. Upon coming to blows with her, he realized that this was his childhood friend, and he immediately fought back against both their captors to protect and ultimately rescue her. When she came to, she vowed to go with Clive to discover the truth of their past and confront the people that made her a slave and a weapon. After some time traveling with Clive and company, destroying mother crystals and learning the truth about their way of life, they make their way to Drake's Breath, where there she has a chance to confront her captors and settle the score. Clive and Jill not only destroy the mother crystal, but Jill kills the man that enslaved her, Imran, the holy priest doing ritualistic sacrifices on children. Doing so helped her come to terms with what she did and allowed her to feel like she'd atoned for the scores of people she'd killed while working under the banner of the Iron Kingdom. Beyond this, she vows to help Clive in his quest to destroy the other mother crystals and liberate the bearers of the world. This was a major turning point for her, as she was finally able to fight for something that she believes in, and on her own terms, a theme that is echoed throughout the rest of the game. Along her journeys with Clive, they endure many things. They're lured into a trap by Hugo, who orders Jill beheaded, only for Jill to be saved at the last moment by Torgal and Clive. They share moments together, becoming closer, and she opens up to Clive slowly but surely. In another encounter with King Barnabas, or Odin, Clive is nearly killed, and Jill steps in and holds Barnabas off while the others make their escape. Clive goes and rescues her there too. Later that very same night, after their encounter with Barnabas, or Odin, she gives her icon to Clive to aid in the fight against Odin in Ultima. It's also this night that they express their love for each other in, well, the most intimate of ways. This is where the divide in the opinion on her character begins. It actually makes a lot of sense for her to want to give up her icon to Clive, since it's brought her so much immense pain in her life. Ridding herself of her icon and helping Clive to become stronger on his own will help keep him alive in the fight against Odin and Ultima. This is the love of her life. She wants to make sure that he's strong enough to survive the fight. In the end, after so much time vowing to fight with Clive together until the end, she ends up staying behind in the hideaway as Clive, Josh, and Dion fly off to face their fates. Her role goes from reluctant weapon to fiery redemption arc to comrade in arms to love interest and finally to grieving wife. There's no question that her actions make sense and are true to her character, and she had to do what she did in order to move the plot forward. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't understand the frustrations of fans who were looking for a strong and independent woman character in Final Fantasy. Where Jill tends to disappoint the fans is after her arc is completed, everything after that moment is written to empower Clive rather than to move anything forward for her, or at least for the most part. There's a large number of fans who want a stronger and more independent woman in Final Fantasy. The reception of her has been a little mixed, mostly positive, a little negative, but it's almost all valid. But there's two criticisms that I can think of in particular that really missed the mark. One is about Jill specifically, and the other is about how people feel about women in video games. The first villain in this little story is Kotaku, which is honestly nothing new, and I feel like it's intentional at this point. They're the villains of journalism, if you even want to call them that. Kotaku writes rage bait. Kotaku wrote a hit piece on her that was so far off base that it was actually comical. They described Jill as being blank and nothing but being pretty, and that she deserved more than that. And I figured that was just a clickbait article headline, but upon reading it, it was clear that the author either hadn't gotten very far in the game or just had zero media literacy. Jill was used as a weapon of mass destruction to kill scores of people, abused, and even alluded to being raped. She's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows. Shiva being her dominant matches her coldness that her personality should and would have. Again, that's about what I expect. When you see a bad article from Kotaku, I can't stress this enough, don't share it. This is what they want. They don't care what you think. Then somehow even worse than Kotaku, Asmongold had this to say in one of his streams regarding the Kotaku article and the hit piece that they had put out on her.
Issue developers have with women in video games. Every game that Kotaku bashes for lack of diversity becomes a mega hit. Remember Hogwarts Legacy and the last Zelda game? That's because the people that write articles about video games aren't the audience of people that play video games. Like, yes, there are gamers that care about diversity and inclusion in video games. I think that it's a single digit percentage though. Most people just want to play a good game. Most normal people don't give a fuck about this stuff. They don't care about this at all.
Hold up, Chief. Close to half of all gamers are women, and another recent study shows 75% of female players rated proper representation of a female protagonist as very or extremely important to them. So 75% of damn near half of the gaming population said that they actually do care about proper representation in their video games. In an adjacent study, 85% of all gamers acknowledged the sexism that still exists in gaming. Hell, somewhere around 40% of people of color think we're badly represented in video games. And then you had the gall to say in your stream and then upload as a YouTube video clip for hundreds of thousands of views later that a single digit percentage of people care about representation in video games. My man, the data is right there. That took me 2 minutes to look up these values. 2 minutes. Stop vomiting ignorance out of your face. You have a responsibility as a large creator to correctly inform your fan base, because you are the captain of a very large ship where there are thousands and thousands, or millions in your case, watching the content that you put out there. You also have the ability to influence gaming as a whole because of your platform and because of how large your fan base is. Take a few minutes or a few seconds to research what people actually feel like. Marginalized groups make up a large chunk of video game players, and you don't get to speak for us. There's fucking data that's clearly saying you're wrong. I'm asking the bare minimum here, honestly, and it's not like this man's gonna see this video, but anybody that's like him, anybody on any platform, it's important that everyone know we do care a lot about proper representation in video games. I made an exhaustive list of the best black video game characters of all time. I was forced to put Alfred Holland on that list, the main character from Forspoken, damn near the top of the list, because we have it that badly. That should say something. Yeah, we fucking care. Anyway, enough about that. Back to Jill. She's well written, and while the plot would have had to drastically change to see her arc come to a different conclusion, I understand why the majority of the complaints are the way that they are. But I do think that she is one of the best supporting characters in the franchise to date. But for Final Fantasy, especially for women, that's a pretty low bar. But what do you think? Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon. And long live the Turtle Kingdom.